Next slide. Okay, perfect.
There you go.
Big round of applause for Frank. I've got to know him over the last few months, and there really isn't anybody as passionate as he is. And I've seen the work firsthand that he does for his dealers, and he does great work. And for the desire that he's talking about, he helps kind of provide some of that oomph to get there. I have a couple things I want to talk about. First, I hope to share some data with you guys that is easily digestible and something you can actually put to work pretty quickly. The second thing is kind of talking about these two words that you hear all the time that kind of hopefully demystify a little bit. It's actually a drinking game at this point, and you would lose if you played it, which is artificial intelligence. All right? How often do I hear that? And I want to share a little bit about if you actually apply it and use some of these technologies, how it can actually turn your website into your best salesperson. And as a side note, I'm going to dive into some insights. I'm going to share some data. All of that data came from an artificial intelligence platform on automotive dealerships. So it should be highly relevant to you guys. What we can agree with, though, is that AI can mean many different things based on who you ask. And the scariest example is this one right here: robots taking over the world, Terminator, end of civilization as we know it. If it's the Matrix we're plugged in as power energy sources. The probably more likely scenario is this one, IBM's Watson taking on a couple smart dudes in Jeopardy and totally destroying them over a 3-day period of time because it's got more access to data and it can access that data faster. And by the way, this was in 2007, so 11 years ago. So it's definitely changing the way we think and we operate. It's also changing the way and the expectations that consumers have today. We expect to be empowered on our own terms from shopping. That means that we're in control of every aspect of the shopping experience, and that includes when and how we talk to salespeople. In order for a business to engage consumers in a meaningful way, they must have an intelligent shopping experience, one that isn't static, one that truly is providing personalization. And without AI powering it, it ain't possible. Now, because the consumer is empowered, it means that a salesperson isn't present. And if a salesperson isn't present, it means technology is, and therefore it has to be as intuitive as your best salesperson on the floor, which can be very, very scary. And at the same time, without that AI, you can't be reacting online, real-time, serving up data that impacts revenue in that minute. Rather, you're going to still be back in the day getting this cool spreadsheets to tell you all the things that you already knew happened, which you need, but in the meantime, what's happening today isn't getting taken place. Now, lots of people talk about AI, and they talk about it in the context, especially when they're trying to sell it to you. And so, when someone's trying to get sold to you on AI, there's 3 real things that you can kind of think about that power it. And again, I'm not going to get lost in the difference between machine learning or AI or any of the other buzzwords that you want to think about. I'm just kind of blanket stating here. But there's 3 things, and the first is data. Lots and lots of data from the time a consumer starts shopping all the way to they purchase. Right? What are they doing? What are they clicking? How many sessions are they taking? How long are they on the site? What did they ultimately end up buying? All of this data creates insights. Those insights come together to create an optimal shopping experience for your future customers. Think about it as a starting point, a best starting point based on all of the actions that those past customers have taken. At the same time, you can take those insights and you can ask yourselves pretty cool questions, like, what actions lead to the most likelihood to buy? Is it because they filled out a credit app? Is it because they scheduled a test drive? Is it because they came back to the site 4 different times? All of that is plugged into a platform that engages consumers and feels natural for those consumers to continue sharing. That platform responds, it adjusts, and the next best step for the consumer is projected in real time. This is what I mean by personalization. This is what AI does. And whether we realize it or not, we are engaging with artificial intelligence, well, for most of the websites that we're going to today. A few examples. The first one brought to us by our friends at Amazon in that bottom right there called, you might also be interested in. Massive personalization. The second, Netflix. Whether you know it or not, that login page for you guys is like a thumbprint. There are no two login Netflix pages the same. All of those recommendations are based on you and past consumer behavior. Last, Pandora, Spotify, whatever your music streaming source of choice is. If you guys are on that and it's asking you to check out the next Celine Dion song, it's because of what you've listened to in the past. So that's really on you. All of these examples are simply taking millions of consumer interactions in the past and coupling it with what you are doing today. They're crunching that data, and then they're sharing the next best thing for you to consume or to recommend or to purchase, ultimately making your decision easier and, more importantly, faster, which is the whole point, right? This is AI at work. Now, let's get into the data a little bit. We've got about 8 million calls to action that we're looking from a little over 500,000 website visitors. This took place over the last couple of months. Just so I don't assume anything, a call to action are those buttons on a page that cause a consumer to click on something, right? And for us, in this example, the calls to actions are sidebars, headers, and buttons. And they were for interactive experiences like value my trade, get e-price, schedule a test drive, really things that cause the consumer to engage. Now, the easiest way to think about this, in my last example, because all of these calls to action were also based on AI, so they were changing. This is my last example, I promise, on how AI works. And I'm going to use my favorite books as a kid, which were Choose Your Own Adventure. And for those of you who don't know how they worked, you would get to the end, and it would give you some options, and you could pick it. So you altered the ending every single time you read the book. It was kind of like a new book every single time. In this instance, you've got a group of heroes. They're confronted by bandits. You've got 3 options. Am I gonna run? Am I gonna fight? Or am I gonna negotiate on the bounty, right? In this room, you probably choose C. That's exactly what AI does. But instead of the consumer making the decision, the technology is serving up the next best CTA based on where you're at in the process. And as you engage with that CTA, it's behind the scenes thinking about what your next step should be based on millions of previous data consumer actions that it knows this is the next natural step. And so on, and so on, and so on, ideally to the point of purchase. All right, so here are some key takeaways from our findings. The first, and what I consider to be the most important, 77% of the consumers that are coming to your site are not ready to buy. This means they are still researching. This means they are still educating themselves. This means that they still need tools available to help them understand what they want to buy. And I don't mean content, because people ain't reading. I expect tools to tell me what I should read. I'm not expected to just surf around and figure stuff out. Now, the problem with this is that most of the sites, the dealership sites that I see today, have these 3 things. A trade tool, which is great, credit app, which is great, and some buy it now feature, which is great. The problem is that those are all in the buy phase. And so as a result, you're basically focusing on all of those consumers in that phase and telling the other 77% of the traffic, beat it. There's nothing for you here. And just a note on this, guys, we work in multiple industries. Industries like multifamily, it's a fancy way of saying apartments and home furnishings. Basically expensive stuff for consumers. We call it considered goods, where the consumers themselves are still researching and educating themselves online, yet they're still doing the sale face-to-face, right? In those industries, apartments, for example, those properties convert 7% of their traffic. In home furnishings, they convert 5%. The average baseline for the automotive industry is 1%. And it's because you are not engaging the 100% of the traffic, which, by the way, is massively expensive for you to get them to go there. You're just expecting them to come and decide that they're ready to buy, and they ain't ready to buy. They will turn into a buyer, but they need tools that allow them to be able to do that. So the takeaway, guys, to drive increased revenue, provide experiences that engage consumers in all phases of the funnel. If you are treating those consumers like they are ready to buy, you are outsourcing your sales to third-party sites or to sites that actually have tools available to allow the consumer to research and educate themselves. When I say third-party sites, I mean AutoTrader, I mean Kelley Blue Book, I mean Cars.com, I mean OEM sites. These are great sites, right? I'm not arguing that whatsoever. These are sites that narrow down the infinite amount of choices for a customer. They're only shopping once every 6 years. But when they leave your site because they decided they landed on, they wanted to check out that truck, and then they decide, you know what, I wonder what else I should look at. What else should I be looking at? And there's nothing to narrow the choices down. They bolt and they go back to these sites. You have lost control. And you are now in a hope strategy. We know how hope strategies turn out. Because you're hoping that once the consumer looks at the next decision that they want to look at, that third-party site delivers up your brand as opposed to somebody else's. If you want to drive increased revenue from your existing website traffic, you need to engage the entire funnel. And there are a million tools like, should I lease or should I buy? What model is right for me? Fair market value. I could go on and on. A million different assessments that allow consumers to stay engaged with your brand on your site for traffic you already paid for. So next I'm going to pick on marketing for a minute. Because these are stats that are based 100% in science. We are way past the days. I know Don Draper is a super cool guy with a cigarette, and he's sitting in a room, and he's deciding what looks good or what feels good. Yeah, that shit's gone. Marketing is 90% science, 10% art. In everything that you guys deal with, if you're dealing with marketers, they should be wicked good at data. These are very fast. These are very easy, and these are things you guys can do right now. To increase, if you have sidebars on your website, if you move them from the top left to the bottom right, you will see a 200% increase. Why? Because that's what the data says. So the takeaway, this is very easy. Move it down there to the bottom right. I don't know why. We've tested this stuff all the time, and this is what works the best. The next one. If your site is optimized for mobile, you will see a 50% increase in conversions over desktop. That's a 95% lift on banners, 167% lift on sidebars, and a 7% lift in buttons. Now, the takeaway, guys, is you have to make sure that your calls to action are optimized for mobile. Every guys have picked those phones up, and you've looked and seen the websites that are like back in the day. I'm assuming you all have looked at your websites and your mobile, but if you're hunting and pecking and you're trying to kill that chat button that won't go away because you're trying to actually read the site and it's not optimized, that's why you won't convert. So if you want to recognize all the benefits that I just talked about, that's what you need to do. Okay, so this one is, I love this industry. I'm getting to know it. I've been in it for a couple of years now, and you come to some sites and you think, what did they say no to? Because you might have a dude that's walking out on the site for some reason, and you might have the floating bar that tells you you win $25, or the chat that's got 12 different people asking you to call you or to talk to you, right? Or you have this is my favorite, you have the banners that have like 12 different banners on them, because people are going to sit there and just watch all 12 of those rotating banners. Here's the thing. Every button you add reduces conversion by 4%. Too much. Too confusing. No clue where to start if I'm a consumer. That doesn't mean 0 buttons. That doesn't mean clean. It means the right amount of buttons, and I'd give you the stat if I knew it right now, but we're running the numbers behind the scenes. Hopefully I can come back in a year and be able to do that. So the solution is not to throw every choice at them, including the kitchen sink. We've all seen these sites. Don't be that one. So the takeaway, guys, is to fight the urge to add CTAs, these confused consumers. It doesn't put them in a position, again, they're only shopping once every 6 years. They're still trying to understand what it is that they want to do, where they should start. Hell, every model, it seems like, changes every 6 years, so they have no idea what's even available today. Deliver the right button to the right person at the right point in the buying journey. This is what AI helps you do. The next is to connect your CTAs to increase close percent. I'm going to take a flyer here. I have no idea who this is, so hopefully they weren't sick. Connect your CTAs to increase close percent. So traditional classic showroom sales training says, get the consumer to take as many steps as possible, right? The dude that's out on the lot that won't come inside is way less likely to get closed than the guy that actually comes in and sits down and fills out the credit app. The principles are exactly the same online for consumers that take multiple interactions. The problem is that your sites typically look like this. They're dead ends everywhere. Use an example. I'm on a VDP, and I see get e-price, and I click it. A, it doesn't give me the e-price, and B, when I finish it and I click out, nothing else is served up next. I'm expected to understand what I'm supposed to do next. These are dead ends. Better yet, if I do decide to click again, oh, thank you. That was awesome. If I do decide to click again, guess what? It asks me the exact same information, and I, as a consumer, realize that there is nothing for me to see here. There is no information that I'm going to get. Thank you, I will leave now. The opposite of this is a connected experience where all of the CTAs are working together. And they're pulled from based on the actions of the consumer, where they're at in the funnel at that point in time. This is how you can literally have hundreds of CTAs behind the scenes that are being pulled up so you don't overcrowd your site, but still deliver the right button at the right time for the right person. Using the same example as I said before, if I see a CTA on a VDP that says get e-price, not only does it give me the e-price, but it asks me some questions, and once I get done, it delivers up the next best action, which might be schedule a test drive. And guess what? It doesn't ask me any of the same information. Now I am in a process where I am moving. This, to me, as a consumer, seems fluid. I understand it. I am taking these natural steps. I am engaging with your website, and more specifically, your brand. And here's why this matters, guys, because completing multiple interactions as a consumer significantly increases the engagement of the consumer and has a massive correlation to the close rate. If a consumer fills out more than one experience, their close rate raises 66% over the average. If they get to 5 experiences, and they will, if it's connected and I'm not starting over every single time I click something, it increases to 230%. This is how and why it is important to turn your website into your best salesperson. This is how you replace a salesperson with technology. The takeaway, connect your shopping tools to increase your close rate. I'm going to end with some basics. Am I doing on time? I bought you some time. I'm sure Frank went over. All right, first, never ask the same question twice. It's not cool if a salesperson comes out, shakes your hand, asks your name, and then 1 second later asks it again. Your tools should not either. If I tell you something on the site, I expect you to remember it. The second one, if I leave, if I'm on your site and I'm shopping for that F-150, and my wife says, hey, Andy, pick up some laundry detergent on Amazon, I jump over to Amazon and I come back and I have to start over, that's super frustrating, and I won't. It should remember me. When was the last time you logged into Amazon? When was the last time you told Netflix who you were? You don't. And yet, guys, this is the expectations of the consumer. And these are when they're buying $50,000 things, not $2 laundry detergent or however much it is. Last but not least, personalize the site to me. Those banners, those sidebars, those buttons should be adjusting as I'm engaging with your site. Your most expensive real estate as a dealer is that main header on your homepage. And if it's saying value your trade, great, that's a good start. But if I do value my trade, and you keep telling me to value my trade after I valued my trade, well, not only are you blowing money, but you're telling me that you're not listening to me, which isn't the norm outside of the industry. I'll leave you guys with this. So out of all this data, and all of these 8 million calls to actions and the website visitors, we saw an increase on time on site from 2 minutes to over 12. And what happens in those 10 minutes is magic. Not really. Just the result of increased engagement, because you're delivering and solving the customer's needs in a funnel that's confusing and making a complex buying process much, much simpler. And as a result, your close rates and your revenue from your existing website traffic, it's going to go up. That's all I got. Let them win.
Good one.